Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with yet another Counter-Strike map analysis video. This is Oasis by On Vacation. I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it because it has VAC, V-A-C. And that's bot MCMXCIX. Don't mispronounce that guy's name. So, yeah, here we are, hanging out. As we see this map, it's quite large. We're in T-spawn. It's all the way down in this little doldrum area or whatever the fuck. It's like a portcullis. I never learned my fantasy terms. Didn't read enough Tolkien or whatever. You can even go all the way up here to hold for like a late push or something from the CTs, or if you happen to get here as a CT first, which I think is kind of neat. I'm a little disappointed you can't go all the way up top, or that this guy didn't go even further with his psychotically large map and make it so that you could do something like, spawning up here. Some people might spawn up here, and some people might spawn over here or something as well. Like, you could do some really interesting stuff, I think, with the spawn points. Although it is, of course, RNG. And so, while RNG is not really that fun for competition, at least it would have shown that he wasn't afraid to try something strange. Now, generally speaking, this map is going to, this map analysis video, rather, is going to talk a lot about, efficient spacing, because this map actually has a large number of connections, unlike it's an issue we had with Safi. And it has okay angles, which is a trait that I found in Rampart to be quite pertinent. But this map does have just too many large open areas. And at some point you need like a nice balance. So we're going to head over to the A-bomb site, which is what I'm looking at now. But, you know, it's pretty large. Like, these are large maps. It's almost like this map was meant for, like, a 10v10 or something like that. Or some larger amount of players than 5v5, right? And I don't appear to be able to jump up here, but I'm clearly meant to be able to, so you can do that. So that's a fix. I don't know what the hell's going on here, but that's a fix. I always seem to notice more of these when I start recording, so enjoy that. So there's two routes directly to the A-bomb site from the T-spawn. It's what appears to be an upper route and then a lower route. They're actually both lower because they both go down. I actually don't mind the environment or the direction of some of these areas, but I do feel like these two rooms feel a little repetitive. It almost feels like maybe this entrance should have been somehow moved a little bit further down and move this area in, something like that for the wall back there, so that we have a little bit less space because we already have a lot of open space, and then try to combine like the little hallway in there, that little landing, and this room into one smaller corridor. And then there's like a justification for it. It's like, okay, you've got this smaller area that maybe takes a while to go around, and so you can only really send one or two people through this region. And, you know, notably you do have areas to throw grenades through and stuff, which is pretty nice. But, okay, yeah, we have that, so we can send one or two people through here for an A-hit. But then over here that you've got these doors that, up until the point where you get to the doors, it's much more open. And so I actually think maybe if these doors weren't open and there was just maybe some cover on the ground or something, that could be used, or some cover further back, similar to how there's cover over here at the other side of the door. If there was some cover that the Ts could use to approach, that could be fine. But, you know, then otherwise open this up, or, you know, maybe move one of these doors in general, like this part, make it toppled over or something. I don't know. Something could have been done there to make it more different, right? Because if you have a lot of pathways, but they're all basically the same beyond maybe some very superficial differences in how long it takes you to rotate through them, they're not as useful to the player for the purpose of expressing your own skill. There will still be times where you use them. For example, when an enemy uses them, that kind of forces you to use it if you're trying to take a fight there, or at least be cognizant of the area and be monitoring that in your head. And that's fine. But you come to it, there comes a time in every man's life where he walks through a hallway and he realizes he could have walked through another hallway and nothing really would have changed. I don't mind that you pop out here in this angle, although it is pretty damning considering the amount of cover. I almost feel like maybe this box here should be moved over here. And so you'd have maybe this wall moved out or removed entirely. So you just have this box like blocking vision directly into this door, because otherwise it's like you neutralize it just by having one guy over here, and that one guy can be holding like an angle on this door, or maybe somebody else. Like this could be the dedicated A anchor from the CT side. He can be holding over here on the site itself, holding for a push from the door, and then somebody else can be holding an angle from like all the way into the middle connector, like the A connector over here. They can be holding this angle and watching for any flood out. Now, yes, obviously, they might have to push up a little bit further if they want to actually peek it, so this box does block their vision specifically, which you could do just by moving this tree further up, honestly. I don't know why it has to be that box, but like there's just not much of a difference at the end of the day to like the width of the pathways, the accessibility of the pathways, what the players have to do to get access to them, and you know, maybe I guess there's less nade opportunities in the one that's further away, which is kind of the opposite of what you would want. But I don't actually know. I haven't looked at the nades that much, so I can't really speak to whether or not the utility possibilities on this map are balanced or not. But right out the gate, we're seeing, you know, areas of the map that don't seem to really justify themselves. Like, I'm looking at this particular area right here, and this has been a huge pain point, both when you're retaking the site and you're a CT and you're coming through it, because there's so many different angles that you have to check. And as a T, like walking around it or even through it, like God forbid you try to walk through this area, there's just so many angles in the map, so many angles in this effective area around the bomb site, because the bomb site itself is quite small. There's not even really that much cover to protect yourself behind. Like, I guess the safest plant would be over here, and that's assuming you've cleared the back site. Maybe you could plant like back here, but then you could get killed anyway. So yeah, there's not really a safe plant spot, which doesn't need to happen in every single bomb site, but is a beneficiary for people learning how to use your site and how to use it to their fullest advantage. And so that to me like makes the most sense, right? That's what I would try to do if I were making a bomb site. I would try to make it so that there's one area that's pretty clearly a safe plant site once you've cleared the site itself, and maybe you work that into the default holding angle. So in that sense, maybe this might actually end up being the safe plant, right? And it's also around the same holding angle. Like, you'd think of default, that spot on Mirage A site, the spot called default. That's kind of where the A safe plant is, or a default plant is. That's why they call it default. So I kind of get that. I kind of get the idea behind it, but I just don't see much of a reason or much of a spot for that particular case in this area, because just looking at all the angles you have to rotate around and looking how wide the area is on top of it, that's where I think the size really does matter here. The fact that it's so large and yet still has a large number of angles like Rampart, and still has a fair number of connectivities, like connections between the areas of the map, like Safi lacked, I think shows a certain amount of, you know, it's like too much all at once, basically. It's overwhelming for players. At least it has been for me to try to figure out what I'm doing. Nice seam. So that being said, obviously the map tends to play out okay in the smaller areas, I would say, and even like some of the gunfights have been interesting around this area. Like when you're hanging out in the front of this little hallway, and you're out here with in cover as a CT holding the door, or over here holding this angle. I think you can do some interesting stuff with those particular establishments. And like I said, this is like a fairly blasé, basic, oh yeah, I'm going to hold this default spot here as well. If you're looking for a push, there's a fair bit of stuff that you could do there. But I'm just looking at it right now and I'm thinking, on one hand, it seems relatively easy for the CTs to hold. You know, they just have one guy holding door and one guy holding the little side entrance here. And this guy who's holding the side entrance is not visible from door, right? Well, I guess he sort of is, right? So maybe that does throw a wrinkle into it. He can sort of see them if he just holds this, right? He could crouch out over here, and I don't think he's visible. Oops. Fuck. Bot golf. All right, we'll crouch and we'll see what's up. Yeah, if you hold that angle, I'm pretty sure you can't see him at all. Like, I can't... He doesn't... Oh, he does show up on my minimap, but that might be because of the other clown emoji. Yeah. So, yeah, you have no idea that he's there if you're clearing this as a T entering. That's one of those things that I feel like, you know, if it only takes two people to hold it, it's probably not that difficult to hold. And, you know, presumably you can cover all entrances. So, in theory, that should be fine. It should be fine for balance. you know, you use your grenades and stuff to create more space, but there's so much space you have to cover. Like, imagine trying to create a wall of smokes on this bomb site or across this area. Like, you probably need 3 smokes or something just to get yourself into a safe position. And to get out of here, you would need to find some lineup that would do... yeah, that's not going to do it because there's a massive gap. So you'd have to find some lineup that would be like... I guess it would be something like this. Yeah. So you do that as a smoke to get yourself out and cover from the potential opper and back sight. And then you just have to clear these angles. Just have to clear those angles. Or maybe you can find a smoke that... like... Oops. There might be a smoke that goes over here or something. I'm not sure. I doubt it. But even if you find a smoke that goes towards the default area, I really don't see how you get anywhere else. Like, I don't know how you get out, because there's so many different areas that the CTs can reposition to and still be useful in, which is fine in a map where there's less space overall, because then you can just smoke out like multiple spots with one smoke. But good luck doing that here where the maps are so large, right? It's like over here you would need, I don't even think two smokes might be barely enough to cover this whole area. And then, but I mean, honestly, that might even be a CT ploy. Like, if you smoke out this area over here that I smoked out earlier, trying to escape that room, their response might just be to smoke this off and then have, you know, an anchor fall back over here or something. A rotator, rather. So, yeah, this is the approach to CT. CT is pretty roomy. I actually don't mind that it's this roomy. Like, again, this is an area where you're not going to have too many gunfights, so it's okay that there's a lot of room. And there's not really that many angles either, because there's not a huge amount of cover, not a huge amount of props. A nice number of areas for saving. This goes into mid. I'll show that off later. That's its own can of worms. This secondary rotation spot, hallway, whatever you want to call it, is sort of like a fast rotation from mid to B or vice versa, whereas this is the outlying one. But again, this is like similar syndrome to the double rotation into A. It's like those two passageways don't really seem like they offer a whole lot of difference. And especially in an area where it's even less likely to have impact on the map, because we're not talking about something that is going to provide you with a way into a bomb site. It's really just like connecting one part of the map to another part of the map, and neither of those parts of the maps are bomb sites. It's like you're connecting one way to a bomb site into another way to a bomb site with a tiny hallway. This does not need to be in the game at all, and will probably just serve to confuse people, and especially be used as like, oh, I can sit here and wait for a rotation or something. Like, I guess there's some value there, but why not just have some cover or something if that's what you're going to provide? In that particular case, there's really not that much time lost by walking over here, or not that much time gained by walking over here, and as a result, it nullifies the utility of both of these spots together, right? So you really just need one. Then we've got 2 rotations from T-spawn, or rather CT spawn, into the B-bomb site, just like we had 2 rotations from T-spawn into the A-bomb site. Gotta get my numbers correct. I mean, letters. Fuck. So the upper area is actually a weird situation, but there's like a staircase down here. It's pretty complicated. I have not played too much action on this B-bomb site, because the rotation through the the B T-sided rotation, which is this bridge over here, is so painful for me to try to engage that I never even bother. But presumably you would find some utility or something to help you out there. And if you do end up going through over here to this like double staircase into the B-bomb site, again, like, why is this so complicated and convoluted? There's so many twists and turns. Like, if anything, maybe you should just make it simpler or something. I guess this saves on space instead of going like basically doing this where you just do a right angle, but it's not more reasonable for the player, I don't think. I guess it's probably a little bit shorter of a rotation or something once you know it, but really confusing at first. It's just so many different angles that are not necessary. Anyway, once we get in here, right, we could probably hold like a smaller angle or something over here, a very shallow angle. And again, without a boost, they can't be looking at us over here, right? Nobody can jump up here by themselves. Oh, maybe they might be able to do some weird platforming shit over here, but I don't even think you can get up here. Yeah, you can't. So you can boost yourself up here. So you got to watch out for that as a CT who's holding it, or whoever's holding it up here. But generally speaking, I don't imagine that will be too important, because the mid-rotation, right? There's so many mid-rotations. The mid-rotation over here, or somebody who's just like holding over here on the site, can keep watch of the other angle, right? He can be holding here. He can be holding a little bit further up over here, and then, you know, flash himself out after he falls back to this position. He can be holding just back of sight, something like this, for the left side, while you hold the right side from the other angle, so you can, together you can cover, like, both exits, in theory. And so, again, just 2 people holding the bomb site, nothing special. Should be theoretically pretty simple based on the geometry. And then I guess the wrinkle here comes from the fact that you probably want 2 people mid. So this is mid. First I get, hold on. This is the bridge from T-spawn. So we're in T-spawn. We take a right. We climb up over here. There's some cover over here that's clearly meant to facilitate op duels or something, but there's just not very much interesting territory to fight over. Maybe, like, you could do something really wild and actually have, like, a, you know, use this cover as an opportunity to cross over here and then have, like, a tunnel that goes, like, a second level to the bridge or something that then pops back up over here or something. I don't know. You could do something that would be more interesting than this. It's just a straight fucking line. And then, you know, that is something that pops out over here would reinforce the idea that maybe there's some more utility there. I can't believe I'm suggesting adding more pathways. Sorry. But when we get to middle, you'll see why I'm so reticent to actually legitimately suggest that. Because as boring as the approach to B is, the middle area of this map is so convoluted, in my opinion. So we have an approach from T-spawn. We come in here. At first, we're given like 4 different areas to go, but the 2 areas dead ahead both lead to the same spot. It's just like more room for you to fight around, which I don't mind. It's like kind of an arena area. If this was the main thing we were looking at, and then there was like 1 pathway to the right, I wouldn't be as, you know, confused or upset, really. I would think, okay, that's kind of a busy mid, but that's fine. But then you go take a look at this left passage. This left passage, as far as I can tell, is just a rotation for CTs, or for a rotating team to quickly move to A, basically, when they're already in mid. And the fact that there's a T-sided, a T-safe rotation from mid to A doesn't really jive with me. I don't think it's necessary, because look at where you end up. Like, again, when you're considering adding a pathway to your map, or when you're reviewing somebody else's map and you're considering a pathway and trying to criticize it or analyze it and review it, you got to look at where you end up, and you got to look at where you start. If you're in middle and you're capable of going over here to start your journey into this area, it's not like you would ever go into this area. Like, this doesn't connect to anything else. So you'd never be in this area for any other reason other than to go from mid to A or A to mid. And you can't even get up here from the A side. Like, you have to be double boosted or something. Or no, I think it's just 1 boost. You have to be boosted over here. So maybe that's what the intention is, because maybe if you boost up here, you can surprise the people in the CT side, but you're still so close to the T side entrance that I don't think this would really surprise anybody. Maybe at a really high level once people learned the map or something. You know, I'm kind of shadowboxing here. You can't jump up over here, unfortunately. I would like to, I would love that, except I wouldn't. But, you know, you end up right outside the entrance to A. What is the point of winding up here when you would do the same exact thing if you were in middle, just by turning around and walking 360 degrees outside the other room, just fucking off and going over here? Like, what is the point? Why do I have another room over here to do this? Like, in this case, it's almost like this doesn't matter in that much. As much as I'm lingering on it, it doesn't really matter that much, because it's such a useless rotation that I really don't think very many people would use it. Like, all it does is cut like 2 seconds off the rotation or something from the T side, or distract you and put you in a shittier position anyway to rotate if you're trying to hit A as a CT. Like, it really does not offer that much. So it most likely will not be used in most cases. Like, most rounds probably wouldn't bother with it. But why is it there then? It just comes back to bite me in the ass. It's like, how many times do I have to ask this question? Why is a pathway there? Well, if I'm asking that question over and over again, maybe your pathways should justify themselves better. That's sort of what I'm getting at here. There's a cool idea that I had, or I thought that the map maker was going for this, where these like ruined brick walls or something were being used to throw grenades and stuff. Unfortunately, I don't think this leads anywhere. I guess you could, in theory, do a really niche flash over here, right? Oops, that's not what I meant. Yeah, that does still flash you, so I think that would be pretty cool. That would be epic, to be honest. But still, very niche, very simple. I would like to see that worked into the map a little bit more. And it's probably not even something the developer intended, judging by how niche it actually is. So, okay, now we're going to get into even more stupid territory. So remember when I said that the 2 pathways we're seeing here are not actually pathways? Well, I fucking lied, because look at this. This is an area where you can drop down and then be towards the A bomb site rotation, this tunnel that I was telling you about earlier. And alternatively, you can walk back up into the B side of the rotation, the B side connector. Nice stairs. And like, there's so many different spots that connect into each other. And there's not even like a ladder. It's like a one-way drop. So it's very clearly meant for like T's to access it or whatever. And maybe that would have made my life easier, actually. Now that I think about it, like, I've never used this area. So I don't have a fully formed opinion on it, because there's just, like, that's one of the things that I played so many maps of this. Played so many matches, like, admittedly bot matches, of this map in preparation for this video, because it's such a large map and there's so much shit going on that I really needed to figure out what I wanted to say about it, beyond the fact that it's such a large map and there's so much shit going on. Now I think we've finally done a full tour of the map, and I'm still fully confused as to, like, what specifically I'm supposed to be focused on and where specifically I'm supposed to be going. Like, there's an abundance of choice, and with that abundance, you realize that a lot of that abundance is actually just like copy and pasted. Effectively, the effect it has on the map or on the layout is not one that is positive. So while this drop, I think, actually could be positive, you would almost have to allow the CTs to have easier access to it, so that it could be something that the Ts could take from the CTs. That's something that the Ts would have to invest effort into taking. The rotations are such that you guys get about here, or maybe it's closer to like right here, when the CTs get around here, or maybe a little bit even further back or something. No, maybe that's not true. I think because I'm playing against bots, they move fucking slow even when they have their knife out, right? So I forgot about that problem. But basically, you have a situation where I believe you as a terrorist get here when the CTs get like to this little doorway here. So it's fairly even. Like, you can basically get a look on this area as they're coming in if they're full knife out rushing. And they shouldn't be doing that if they're clearing a door, obviously. So you might be taken aback by how much that is, so maybe if that happens a lot, you'd be preemptively flashing or smoking or something. But what I would say from this area is, like, okay, yes, the CTs and Ts are going to be drawing blood over this area. They're probably going to be sending at least 2 people mid because of how complex it is. And that means that they're probably going to have, like, 1A, 1B, and, like, maybe another one in the B, the lower B area, which is guarding this drop, basically. So, like, I guess you'd have, well, I guess it'd be 2A, rather. So the A side of this, which is like this lower area. I'm getting lost in the map in my own review, by the way. But holy back-facing. Holy shit, what did you do? What did you not do, I guess, is a better question. But, yeah, so that would be about where things happen. Like, that's where the first contact of the map will probably be. Most people want to explore mid in their first time in the map anyway. So you do some pop flashes throughout there. And, well, it's not really a pop flash because, you know, it isn't, but you could do something like that. That could be pretty epic if they're coming in. It bounces off their heads, basically, above their heads. But whatever. You figure out something to do and try to neutralize the action. But, you know, I don't know. It just feels like they're not expending enough utility most of the time to get over here, if they were. Because it's just a gunfight, right? So, you know, it's like an op duel or a rifle duel or something like that. And all else fails, you just drop like a single smoke, which would probably be, no, I don't know where it exactly, like, you would line up to do it, but you drop a smoke there and like maybe a little bit further back so that you don't have this gap over here, and then you just walk in. So it's like, you think to nuke and the nuke vent dive or whatever, that's like an iconic aspect of that map. You just you're throwing a grenade and then like flashing and smoking and stuff. Like, you're trying to really get out there. Or the outside take, where it's 2 smokes and probably like a Molotov and an additional smoke, depending on how high level you're talking. And there's a lot of utility expended in that, and it requires a lot of cohesion and teamwork and stuff. Those are pretty advanced strats. Now, if you want to put that kind of thing in your map, all the power to you. But maybe don't make it a part of mid, or if you are going to make it a part of mid where you can rotate to both bomb sites, what I would suggest to do is make it so that it requires a bit more of an investment. Which means you'd have to allow easier access to the area for CTs, so that the Ts actually have to make an investment in order to take it. Or the CTs have to make a horrible mistake and leave it unguarded or something. Because that is pretty pivotal in theory. I guess the counter-argument there is that because the map is so roomy and the map has so many different passageways and stuff. CTs could just play a more passive angle and then hold the exits, right? They might not even have to go mid, in theory. They might just have, like, you know, 2 people on the A-bomb site, 1 person listening for drops, because you have to be here, so he could be, like, right here, listening for a drop, or he could even be, like, watching it or something, like doing something like this, holding it or whatever, similar to Ivy. Except obviously there's less options for playing around with the ladder or whatever, and then you could have 2 people B. So something like that might actually be a better setup anyway. The only counter argument to that would be, you know, they could go all the way through mid to CT spawn and then prank you. But if time has elapsed enough for that and you haven't heard anything, you'd probably just check on your own. It's just really strange to me that this map ended up being the way that it is, right? I'm trying to theory craft like how you would go about making effective use of all of these assets, but I really don't think you can, because a lot of these assets don't provide effective uses. So based on that alone, I would be removing a lot of these pathways, like the one I'm in right now, and the one outside A, and the one outside CT spawn over here. There's not much of a justification for it. I think maybe the upper area over here could be interesting for gunfights or something, and there's enough nooks and crannies that you can hide in it, sort of like Palace in Mirage A, but it's way less interesting cover on the bomb site itself, on this B-bomb site here, and as a result, all of the interesting gunfights happen like before you get to the bomb site, and even then it's like this rotation is so boring and so painful. It's like one smoke can do you in, basically, from the CTs, and then, okay, suddenly I can't play the game, right? It's like I can jump on this barrel and try to peek over. That's the only area that's visible. I'll just get bopped in the skull as soon as that happens. And for that to really stymie the entirety of the efforts is pretty unfortunate, right? Obviously, that's not like it doesn't ever happen anywhere else. Obviously, that happens with Inferno, B-Site, and stuff like that, but there's always something that they can do, and that long rotation there where you have to make a lot of noise if you're going to power through, where you can easily be spammed, where there's no geometry to really help you out there if that smoke does go down. Like, what can you do here? You can hide behind here. You'll probably get flashed up. I guess you can try to do something like this, right? You can fall, by the way. I'm not going to do it, but you can fall to your death. Just does not feel good, though. It doesn't feel like you have the available tools on the B-bomb site entrance that you... Like, you have an excess of tools, in some cases tools that are just copies of each other and provide the same results, and so they're kind of useless, but or not unique enough. Don't justify their own existence, but it's just such a convoluted layout. And on the B-bomb site, this is like an area where he forgot to be convoluted or something, because everything else on the map is really complex and deals in large spaces with many different connections, but the B-bomb site approach is just a fucking bridge. And so both feels out of character for the map, but also in a way where it's like too simplistic. It's too far the other direction. So I'm not a fan of that. Nice. So where does that leave us, right? It was a shorter video than usual. I don't really have much else to say on this. I guess this is one of those warnings that you can give out. You can be like, hey, don't make your map too big, and don't have way too many connections. It's like the antithesis to the Safi video, where I went over and I talked about how there's a distinct lack of connections between areas, and so there's not enough tools and not enough unique playstyles that you can reward and all that stuff. This has too many tools, except the tools are not distinct enough for what you want. So that's sort of where I'm at right now. That's my determination after much deliberation and playtesting. That being said, I'm open to popping this up again if it gets updated and overhauled. But I would say I don't know anything about the author. I have not looked into how frequently this map gets updated. I would assume that the author is quite happy moving on from this. So this brings our coverage of the contest, the Exotic Places Mapping Contest, to a close. There was another map, Cappadocia, I believe, but it's so psychotic I can't bring myself to actually look at it. And there were a few other maps that were, I believe they were like, they just weren't the top 10 or honorable mentions, but they were made for the contest that I thought were kind of interesting. Unfortunately, most of them I mean, for one, I don't even remember them, but for another, most of them don't actually work with bots, which means I can't test them. So with that said, maybe I could organize like an actual playtesting session or something with real humans, but I don't have that kind of friend network to just throw in a 10-man, so probably not happening. Although it would most likely improve my analysis, my ability to analyze. Give me more conjecture. I wouldn't have to shadowbox as much. But, yeah. That all being said, thanks for watching. And we'll be back with some other maps. Somebody was suggesting a map for me. I think it was TARDIS or something. Otherwise, I will also be doing some maps that I've already had in the pipeline for a while or in a document for a while to look at that I want to raise awareness of. So there you go. You can expect more stuff from me. I probably just at a rate of once a week as we have been. So enjoy that. Yeah. Bye.